also. Well, I can see Mangesh also. Hello, Mangesh.
Hello, Vijay sir, how are you? Hi.
Yeah, Mangesh, Ravi here.
Yeah, Ravi. Hi, how are you?
Yeah, doing good. I hope you know me, right?
Yeah. Met one time.
Yeah.
True.
Last
Great.
I flew in Pune, I mean.
Okay, sorry, people, I'm going to off. So when you ask questions, okay, Bhushan and Eric, both of your mics are open. You can,
Yes.
Yeah. So you guys, whenever ready, you can go ahead.
Yes. Are we recording? Yes, we are.
Go ahead.
Welcome, everyone. We continue flying stories with another legacy today. Our today's speaker has been flying for more than past 3 decades. He has been a flying instructor for 25 years in paragliding and paramotoring. He has rich experience of flying paragliders, powered paragliders, trikes, 12 types of sailplanes, powered hang gliders, and the likes. He is a sailplane guiding senior instructor, DGCA approved gliding examiner. There are about 9 in the country. He has 20,000 flights under his belt till date. And in those flights, there are many noteworthy highlights, one of which is world's biggest paramotoring show in France. In 2010, Bassam Paramotoring, he was one of the 385 paramotors in the show. His designed and manufactured equipment under the banner Wings and Flights has been supplied to the Air Force, which they used to set a record of 10,000 kilometers cross-country expedition on paramotors. He has been in close connect with Army, Navy, and Air Force to train pilots on free flights. He has been a part of Vijay Devas, which is conducted on 16th of December for last 12 years and counting. He has trained with APCO Aviation and built a global standard adhering repair facility for all flying equipments with in-house setup. He has been serving schools in Kamshed and the defense services with equipment maintenance, repair, and airworthiness checks for more than 20 years now. Please join me in welcoming Eric Menezes.
Yeah, good evening, friends.
So today's talk is centered on paramotoring, and we as paragliding pilots, free flying pilots, have been talking about free flying and all aspects of paragliding over the last few days, a couple of weeks through the lockdown. And today is a session in which we are getting introduced to paramotoring with your guidance, sir. So let's dive into the subject. Let's talk about progression from paragliding to paramotoring. Could you walk us through how that journey happens?
Please tell me once again.
Yes. Can you talk about progression from paragliding to paramotoring? Like, I am a student who has been learning paragliding for, say, 2 or 3 weeks. I'm about 10, 20 hours into paragliding, and I want to move to paramotoring.
Get into paramotoring. Okay.
The process?
Steve, first of all, these are two different sides of the same coin, you can say. Paragliding is different compared to paramotoring.
Yes.
Paragliding kicks into paramotoring only the moment the engine quits. Otherwise, there is no semblance between paragliding and paramotoring. They are totally different. They're quite different from each other. The flying techniques are different. The feel is different. You can do lots of things. Of course, they are related to each other also. And it is not necessary to be a paraglider pilot to get into paramotoring. That's for sure. Okay.
Okay.
There are many clubs world over, and with us also. I think more than 90% of our students
Hmm.
are not coming from paragliding background.
That's nice.
There is uh, there's something strange about it that once you take up paragliding, it's very difficult for you to get into any other stream, like paramotoring and things like that. First of all, I think it is also because it is very expensive, and people have already spent money on equipment, and then they want to spend almost 4 times more on paramotoring. They are anyway paragliding. So there are many reasons, and then these two communities don't mix up with each other, paragliding and paramotoring. Okay,
Right.
their place of operation is also further out, far out, apart. They don't come together and fly. Very rarely you will have a place where a few paramotorists are flying somewhere around and some paragliding pilots are there. Of course, if there is a flying field like a runway or something like that, where there is winching going on, there could be paramotoring going on. But paramotor pilots will not like to fly around hills and obstructions. No? Yeah. Coming back to the question, that there is not much to getting into paramotoring from paragliding, because a person who has not done paragliding also can get into paramotoring, and he can become one of the world's best paramotor pilots also. So therefore, but one thing is there: if you come from a paragliding background, it gives you an added advantage. You are a much safer pilot, and the instructor don't have to do a lot of work on you, because you understand the basics of flying. There are a lot of small things which it is already ingrained into your mind by the paragliding instructor. So therefore, workload is a little less, and you will learn much faster. Please go ahead.
All right. Okay, so in your teaching and in your experience for last couple of decades, how is the progression of paramotoring? How does it happen? Like a beginner student, what goes on first? What are the building blocks of becoming a good paramotoring pilot?
Myself and Mangesh, we were two of us who started paragliding. I think we were among the pioneers. There were not more than about 3 or 4 people doing paragliding in the entire country. None were doing paramotoring. We started paramotoring right in '95. Okay. Tell me, ask me the question once again.
So how would you say, what are the key building blocks of becoming a good paramotoring pilot?
No, your question was something else. You were asking me something else. Actually, I skipped that.
Like if we put a progression of paragliding to paramotoring away, and if we were to consider, like, you have been training students from last couple of decades, so what would you say are the building blocks of becoming a good paramotoring pilot? Like, how do we start? What are the initial considerations? How do we work upon our skill levels in paramotoring?
See, we have done paragliding for a long time, and we understand the difference between paragliding and paramotoring. I think we have done for more than 15 years of paragliding and training in paragliding. Paramotoring compared to paragliding is a little difficult. I mean, it is not all that simple and straightforward to teach somebody to paramotor compared to paragliding. Paragliding, you come in the morning, and I'll make sure that you will fly by evening.
Right.
Okay, that can be done, but not in paramotoring. Paramotoring is very involved. If there are damages, the damages are huge. I mean, financially also, and your confidence also shatters like mad. In paragliding, you may fall, you may have small fall.
Right.
The progression is very slow, but in paramotoring, especially backpack flying, when you have to send somebody solo, you just send them solo, and you have done whatever ground handling and whatever you have taught right on the ground itself. An instructor does not go with the pilot, with the student. The first flight itself is his flight. So therefore, and the instructor has to work hard. He cannot take more than maybe 1 or 2 students in a batch. Whereas in paragliding, you can have about 10 students also.
Yeah.
Here, your time is much longer to train somebody, and you have to concentrate much more. You have to make sure that the student does not break anything. And if the student breaks something, it is the responsibility of the instructor. The instructor is to be blamed. So instructor has to do a lot of work before the student goes solo. And compared to paragliding, it is quite an involved thing. There are very few people who come into it, and it takes a longer time to learn paramotoring than paragliding. Of course, there are a lot of stages, just like paragliding. There are a lot of stages like basic and intermediate, and advanced, and acro and competition. All those things are there,
Right.
just like paragliding. But the stakes are also very higher. So unless and until, unlike paragliding, where you have learned paragliding and then you can hire a glider and fly there, but here gliders are not available for hire because you have to buy the paramotor and progress into it. So therefore, it becomes restrictive for students. Some of the students who cannot afford to take up the sport because of financial constraints. So therefore, you will not find as many paramotor pilots as much as you can find in para.
All right. So let's say I'm very keen and I'm enthusiastic about taking up paramotoring. I come to you. What do you divide my first 10 hours, my maximum attention, and where does the grinding begin, and where do I start to see myself flying, say maybe 1 hour, 2 hour, 3 hour kind of flights? How do I go from absolute beginner? Where's the maximum time spent?
It depends, Bhushan, it depends on how much money you're going to give me.
Right.
The more money you give me, the more I'm going to teach you. Anyway, it is like anybody comes to us, he has to complete the formalities of the paperwork and all. It's a little more involved than compared to paragliding. And we have to dedicate one machine, whether it is a backpack or whether it is a trike. We have to dedicate one machine for one student, and the ratio between a pilot and an instructor is 1:1. So therefore, you will be allotted one instructor, and the instructor has got a progress sheet with him, which runs into a couple of pages. There are about, I think, 22 exercises to be completed. It is the responsibility of the instructor to complete all the exercises to the satisfaction of the student. So the one copy of the progress sheet is given to the student also, and the student also can see what is coming next, and they keep discussing in the evening. They do the practicals. They sit for about an hour or so. They understand the theory behind it, and the student can see it. If the student is happy and he has understood everything, he goes ahead and keeps on training. So there, it is seamless training. It goes by the basics in the beginning, the ground handling, and then the top to bottoms. You can say a few flights up and down, and gradually keeps on progressing. As he keeps progressing, the instructor is going to push him higher and higher, higher and higher with greater and greater difficulties, level of difficulties. He'll increase the level of difficulties. One of the best instructors I have is of Mangesh Dike and Taurus Mehta. He's one of the best instructors I've got.
Right.
That chance. Please go ahead.
Great. Then very interesting. Can you walk us through the typical flying equipment that a paramotoring pilot has to look at during training, and as he grows, like what are the equipments that he needs to acquire as to build a kit?
Yes. Well, it depends on what exactly he wants to do with flying. Okay. Just like in paragliding also, whether he wants to do just local flying, whether he wants to do cross country, whether he wants to do acro, whether he wants to participate in competition. Depending on that, he will buy the equipment. But nowadays, there are a lot of restrictions. So therefore, there are very few places where he can go and operate. Most of the flyers, they would like to buy the equipment just to do leisure flying, and sometimes maybe short cross countries and all. So for short cross countries, you need to have faster gliders,
Hmm.
and for leisure flying, you need to have slower gliders and gliders which can thermal very well.
Mhm.
Also, okay, some people would like to get into a thermal, put off the engine and climb up
Oh,
in a thermal. Okay,
okay.
and that's how that is the fun of both. Mixture of paragliding and paramotoring. They find it good to thermal and go on a cross country and conserve fuel. We used to do that lots in the beginning. Later on, the restrictions kicked in, and then the Air Force also does not allow us to do any more cross countries.
I see.
So therefore, we have restricted us for leisure flying nowadays. And the best thing is that you buy a docile glider and a small paramotor and start with your backpack flying, and you can get into, if you want to get into commercial or you want to get take people on tandems, then you can take buy a trike or maybe hire a trike or have a cartel where about 3 or 4 people can get together and have a trike and fly also. It is not very difficult to learn, but it is involved. It's involved.
I
Yeah,
see.
please go ahead.
How about the engine, the propellers, and could you talk a little bit more about that part, the motor part of a paramotor?
Engine is there are various engines. Just like there are very small engines, there are bigger engines, there are heavier engines, there are more powerful engines. Then there are lighter engines. There are foldable engines. That
Okay.
paramotors are foldable also. Nowadays, the latest trend is that people want to have foldable engines and put into a suitcase and they can carry it in a flight or in a small car or something like that. So that is the trend nowadays, and engines are becoming smaller and they're becoming very powerful also. Uh, there are different types of engines for different purposes. Some people want to do long distance cross countries and they are good paraglider pilots also. They want to do long distance cross country with little fuel and they want to take advantage of the thermal. So they will go for a very tiny engine. May not be. It will just give you that lift and it will take you up to 1,000 feet. After that, it will just sip fuel. You can conserve fuel for quite some time. You can jump from one thermal to the other, catch a thermal, climb up and go to the thermal. So people would like to have, those who want to concentrate on cross countries, they will have smaller paramotors with fuel efficient paramotors, the engines. And those who want to do tandem flying, they will be having big robust engines, Rotax or maybe some engines which are about 500 cc or something like that. And some people get into commercial flying also.
Is the scene dominated by two-stroke engines for their obvious power to weight?
Because yes, because of power to weight ratio is better with two-stroke, and they're very powerful engines. Two-stroke engines are very powerful. Just like if you know the Yamaha 100
Yes,
cc engine,
RX.
very popular because it was uh, it was it had a lot of power in it, and the engine was small, and that was the engine which was used for racing also.
Right.
So two-stroke engines have always dominated paramotoring. Nowadays, electric paramotors are also coming in a big way. People are also buying electric paramotors. The only disadvantage is that there are limitations on timings for electric paramotors. You can have maybe an hour's flight, something like that. But if you are a good paraglider pilot and if you can catch thermals, you can do long distance cross countries with the electric paramotors. They are much quieter compared to engine paramotors. Uh, the petrol-driven paramotors. Yeah,
It
please go
seems
ahead.
like there's so many things, opening up slowly. I'm sure many unique, many unique aspects of paramotoring are, put together to put up a sport in itself, I would say.
Yes.
So you'd go to questions, but before that, would you touch up upon the harness and the difference in harnesses typically that we see in paramotors from?
Harnesses are much simpler in paramotoring. They are not very complicated because they have to be very light because you already have a backpack which is so heavy behind you.
Right.
It is just a matter of getting used to the backpack behind you, the weight behind you. It is just like saying that you have to get used to climbing the hill to do paragliding. So once you get used to the weight of the paramotor, it is not all that difficult, or you don't have to really bother about the weight of the paramotor. So the biggest constraint in paragliding harnesses are that they have to be really light.
Yes. Yes.
Okay, and they cannot be bulky, or you cannot have big cushions and all those things.
True.
The crumple zone and everything is not very much inbuilt into paramotoring harnesses.
Right.
At the most, you can have a little cushion at the bottom, and if you fall on your back, the paraglider is going to take. So therefore, they don't much concentrate on the safety aspect of harnesses. They will make the harnesses simpler
Okay.
because I feel that it is much safer in terms of accidents and all, doing paramotoring than paragliding. I have broken, to tell you the truth, I have broken at least about 16 bones
Oh,
in paragliding, not a scratch in paramotoring.
oh, wow.
Yes.
That is interesting. We'll talk more about that. But I think we are getting a lot of questions in queue. Are you good to take a few questions?
Please go ahead.
Okay. Questions in queue. Prateek, please go ahead with your question.
Hi, Eric. This is Prateek here.
Prateek?
Thank you for coming and taking this session. So I have two questions. My first question will be when you start paramotoring training, and even if you don't have previous paragliding experience, do you straight away start with a backpack of paramotor or a trike, or there are ground handling sessions with the paraglider first, and then you move on to a motor on your back? The second part is, what are the restrictions that we have in paragliding, which are no longer restrictions in paramotoring? So for example, is wind speed a restriction? So generally in paragliding, if the wind is upwards of 20, 25, if upwards of 25, 30, we usually don't take off. Do we have similar restrictions like these in paramotoring, or those are taken away? And if you could touch upon such more restrictions which are no longer available in paragliding, that would be great.
Yeah, Pratik, I think your question is very long. Let us split it into small parts. First part is that you said that the paramotoring, to learn paramotoring, you asked me that was answered right in the beginning. I think you were not there at that time, but I will repeat it once again. Tell me, what was the first part of the
My
question?
question is, when a student enrolls for a paramotoring course, irrespective that student has paragliding experience or not, do you
Yeah.
do you
Yes.
directly start on a paramotor, or you
Yeah,
ground?
yeah. 95% of our students are coming straight from paramotoring. They have never seen a paraglider fly also. I'm telling you this. They have seen a paramotor flying, and they have seen us operating, and they say that I would like to learn this. Yes, you can. Of course, just like paragliding, we train them to on ground handling, give them a couple of sessions for about a day or two or three, and then there are a lot of theory sessions, unlike paragliding, and small hops are there, maybe winching, a little bit of winching with the paramotor, so that they don't mess up with the equipment. It's a gradual process, but it's a very involved process. There's a lot of difference between paragliding and paramotoring training. Paramotoring training is very involved, and there are various stages, and you cannot have many people coming in one go itself in a batch. The ratio between uh, the student and the instructor is 1:1. Unlike in paragliding, you can have about 10 students also lined up with one instructor, and you can get into training paragliding, but not in paramotoring. Paramotoring, you have to be dedicated there, and it is not necessary that you have to come from paragliding background. But if you come from paragliding background, it is an advantage. Yeah. Second part
My
of
other question is, what kind of are, sorry, can you hear me?
yeah, I can hear you.
My other question was, what kind of restrictions are done away when we start paramotoring? For example, is there a restriction like wind speed And is the threshold higher when you're paramotoring, or is it the same?
I think free flying gliders can take more wind than paramotors. Because when you fly with a paramotor, the angle of attack is a little more compared to the angle of attack is a little more because of the power. So you are getting pushed and the glider is trailing behind you. So the angle of attack is a little more. So the speed is generally less. Of course, the manufacturer does a lot of things to see that the paramotor flies a little faster. But compared to paragliding can take little stronger wind conditions. Paramotoring can take little lesser wind conditions, lesser speed. That is, I have noticed that, and we don't fly in very strong wind conditions. Of course, in tandems, and if your gliders or paramotors are heavily loaded, then you can fly almost up to about 30-35 kilometers per hour also.
Okay, got it. Understood. Thank you.
Next in queue is Mangesh. Mangesh, please unmute
Yeah.
yourself.
Okay, Eric, can you explain a bit about what is the difference between a paramotor glider and a free flying glider with respect to the design, the strength, and the weight ranges? Can you elaborate on that?
Mangesh, it is not within the scope of this program to answer this question. It's very elaborate.
Okay.
But if I have to tell you in short, very short, because there is lots of things considered when you have to make a paramotor glider compared to a paraglider, free flying paraglider. One distinct difference is that the lines which are made for paraglider, free flying paragliders, are very thin compared to paramotor gliders. The lines are thicker and stronger because they have to carry more load. And the gliders which are made for paragliders have got a certain angle of incidence. That angle of incidence a little more compared to the angle of incidence that is manufacturer's angle of incidence for paramotors. Paramotors, just because they trail and the angle becomes a little more and the angle of attack is more. So therefore, they have to be made a little, the angle of incidence has to be lower than compared to free flying paragliders. So therefore, if they are lower, then they will cut the wind faster. Plus, the difference is that in paraglider, to increase speed, you have trimmers, paramotors, you have trimmers. You don't have speed bars. But in free flying paragliders, you have got speed bars, so you can press the speed bar and go faster. And trimmers are for long distance cross countries. So you can set the trimmer to faster speed and you can leave it there. But with a paraglider, you cannot hold on to your speed bar for a long time because it is very tiring. So it is for a short distance, you press the speed bar and cross a place of heavy winds or something like that. And the fabric is generally little thicker. I feel it's a little thicker compared to paragliding, and the inside ribs are much stronger because they are made very strong inside. The rest everything is more or less similar to paragliding. Earlier, the manufacturers were making special paragliders for paramotors and paragliders for free flying. But nowadays, manufacturers have come out with two-in-one kind of paragliders, which can take paramotoring and paragliding also. But again, with the same breath, let me tell you, the hybrid type of wings, which can do both, will not perform best in either of the conditions. It will not be very good in paragliding and it will not be very good performing in paramotoring. If you want to have if you want to have performance, then you have to go with dedicated paragliders, which are specially made for paramotoring and specially made for free flying. Engage.
Wow. Okay, so we can move on to the next question if your question is answered, Mangesh sir.
Yeah, it's answered. Yeah.
Okay. So Rohan, please ask your question.
Uh, Hello, sir. It is really great to have this session with you. So I have three small questions. The first question is, how easy it is to take a paramotor out of India and bring it back to India?
Rohan, this is one of the biggest questions people face when they have to go for competitions and they have to participate into some events abroad, because it's very expensive to hire a paramotor abroad. The biggest constraint is the cost of taking the paramotor abroad, because its weight and its volume. Um, Otherwise, as far as the custom department is concerned, it is not a big problem, because you can have a letter with you saying that you are going to participate into some event, or you can get a letter from some organization. If you are not participating into some event, if you are just taking the paramotor for just leisure flying out there, you can do that, but it's best to have a letter with you mentioning that you are taking it for a particular purpose, and that letter has to come from some authentic organization which has to do something with flying. You have to get your paramotor endorsed on your passport while taking it out, and while coming back, they will ask you that you about your paramotor. What is this? So you say that this is the equipment which I have taken abroad, and this is endorsed in my passport. So I'm taking it back again. So the letter also has to mention that you are coming with the equipment and going back with the equipment. So you have to try it out once, and it's not very difficult. People have been doing that. A lot of foreigners have been doing that. They are getting their equipment to India, they fly here, and they go back. Yes, please go ahead, Rohan.
Okay. And the second question is, how easy it is to fly with a paramotor in India, because it is like a mini airplane you have. You can take off from anywhere. It is a very convenient thing. So how easy it is, and are we supposed to be bothered about the other authorities?
One of the reasons why paramotoring has not developed much compared to paragliding in India is because of a lot of restrictions in India. Paramotors have a capability of carrying payload. So therefore, they are looked by the authorities with concern that they can be used for destructive purposes also. So therefore, it is very difficult to have paramotors and fly everywhere. The restrictions are much higher, so therefore it will not get all that popular in India, at least, as long as restrictions are good. I think I have skipped off your question. What was your question once again?
Actually, the question was how easy it is to fly with a paramotor in India, because it is so convenient to take off with it. So, yeah.
Yes, it is. It's very convenient compared to paragliding. It's far more convenient if you have got the entire paraglider assembled and kept at one place.
Yeah, but
You should not.
should we be bothered about the authorities, and like how easy do you think it is? Like, can we just go anywhere and just take off, or there is a
If you are a solo flyer and if you are a hobby flyer, you can go about 50 kilometers away from an airport. You should not be flying anywhere close to the airport, at least 50 kilometers away from the airport. And if you keep yourself below 500 feet, I think that should not be a problem. Because there are a lot of choppers which fly around 500 feet. And if they sight a paramotor flying around that area, they will report, and then you will be taken for task. That is the problem. So, you need to. There is no airspace in this country which is free. So there is no place where the authorities or the Air Force or the Civil Aviation Department has said this is a dedicated airfield, airspace, where anybody can come and fly. That place is not there. All the entire airspace in the country is under the control of the aviation authorities. But I'm telling you, if you're just doing a simple flight, about half an hour flight, an hour's flight, you're not going to do a cross country, you're not going to fly very high. A little give and take, 500 feet to 1,000 feet. And if you know the terrain of that place, that area, that there are no aircraft passing at that place, I think that should be fine. There's no problem.
And and the last question is, there are lots of different types of paramotors. So there will be different types of maintenance procedures required for every different paramotor.
You're not visible. You're not visible to me.
Am I audible now?
You are audible, but you're not visible.
Oh yeah, I can turn on my camera.
Yeah.
So the thing is, there are a lot of different types of maintenance procedures might be involved in different types of paramotors. So, like, if I get into a paramotor as a beginner, so first of all, I don't know what are the types of paramotor available. So I don't even know how to maintain it. So now, even after buying a paramotor, I should be knowing all the equipments and how to maintain it.
Correct.
So how easy it is, or like is the maintenance procedure same for most of the paramotors, or it is different for each and every paramotor?
Most of the paramotors are the maintenance is same. It's a two-stroke simple engine. It's a very simple engine. There are very few parts inside paramotor. And if you are not technical, and if you have got a motorcycle mechanic who is a good motorcycle mechanic, you can get your paramotor maintained by him. There are schedules available for maintenance. You can have those schedules. Manufacturer also gives you a manual, and there are some schedules, maintenance schedules. We have also got some schedules. We have also developed some schedules, inspection schedules with us. So if you keep up with your maintenance, periodic maintenance, it will not be difficult for you to maintain the parameters. And as far as the repairs are concerned, it is best to take it to a mechanic and ask him to open the engine. There are hardly any parts in it. A good mechanic will be able to fix it. There's no problem. But the biggest problem is that you have to get the genuine parts. You have to have genuine parts, then you can go to a mechanic.
Okay.
And you can get it done. You can watch how he's doing it, and next time you can also do it. There are a lot of pilots who do it all by themselves. Also. World over, all the pilots, they learn how to maintain their own parameters, and it's not very difficult.
And is it really expensive to maintain it?
Yes, compared to a motorcycle, it is expensive because the parts are imported and they are expensive. But if you just follow the advice of the manufacturer, and one of the most important advice, let me tell you, is that you have to use good quality fuel and required amount of oil inside your engine. These are the two things which are most important. If you are doing this and if you are keeping your parameter clean, that's it. There's nothing more to that. If there is a damage, then you have to look into the damage, and if you find that there is something broken, you get the spare replaced. Don't try to weld it, or don't try to do something, and don't try to take it to some place where you can just do a temporary work. It will not work. It's best to replace it and carry on.
Thanks for answering all the questions. It was a really great help.
Okay.
Thank you. Thank you, Rohan.
Thank you, Rohan. I think at this point, we are getting a couple of questions, which we are anyway planning to cover.
Are there many questions, Bhushan?
Yes.
Are there many questions? Yeah.
Yes, but the sequence that we have, what we are going to talk next, a few points, I think they are quite related. So maybe we'll go on with that discussion and then take on the questions if they still exist.
Okay.
Okay. So moving on, I was trying to piece these things together. What would be the critical considerations or dynamic changes in terms of how a paraglider behaves and how a paramotor behaves? So as a free flying community over here is mostly flying paragliders and are keen, and as you're seeing with the questions, they're very keen on knowing about paramotoring. What would be the consideration and changes in the way a wing flies? Like, for example, just because I have friends in paragliding, I know initial takeoff and you have a thrust. So what are the key aspects or very critical points that you
Yeah. See, I can see one thing about when you compare paragliding and paramotoring is that the speed, the biggest constraint in paragliding and even paramotoring is the speed. You want to reach longer distances further out,
right?
and you cannot do that because you are limited to the speed of the glider. In a paraglider, um, you have to have a certain amount of surface area to fly, for compared to your weight. I mean, if you are of a particular weight, then the glider has to be that big. Okay, it should not be bigger than that. It should not be smaller than that. Why it should not be bigger than that? Because if it's bigger than that, you will not be able to go fast. It will be flying slow. And if it is smaller than that, you will have a limitation of taking off and landing. Because you have to run. I'm talking about paragliding, okay?
Yes.
Free flying paragliding. So if the glider is smaller, then you have to run very fast, and while landing also it will come down very fast. Because there is an advantage. You can have a smaller glider. The advantage is that if you can manage to take off, and you have to manage the landing also later on, you can take off in stronger wind condition with a smaller paraglider. Because you've got power, so you've got an advantage. You're not really bothered about your sink rate because you can have power. So people who are experts, they can have smaller gliders than their weight, and they can fly faster. Okay, they can fly faster. Am I audible?
Yes, this is better.
It is a little far. Okay. You can have smaller gliders and you can fly faster with a paramotor. And I think they have achieved a speed of about 80 kilometers per hour, 90 kilometers per hour in a paramotor compared to paragliders. I think paragliders have not gone that, they are not flying all that fast.
Yeah.
Because if they have to be that fast, then they have to be smaller. And if they have to be smaller, then their landing speeds are higher.
Yes.
And it's not humanly possible to land. With a paramotor, you can, when you're coming for landing, you can give a little power and keep on giving, applying brakes. So your angle of attack keeps on increasing. It will drastically slow down, even if it is a smaller glider. Of course, it will be a little faster, but you can come down with a smaller glider just because you've got power, which is not possible with a paraglider. That's the big difference which I can see between paragliders and free flying paragliders and paramotors.
Okay. Yeah, and I think when I mentioned on chat right now, although paragliding and paramotoring appear to be a similar sport to a layman's eyes, they are pretty much different sports in themselves as we get to the details. So coming to the next aspect of safety and potential risks, can you talk a little bit about the reserves or the structure in a paramotor harness and the engine reliability? Touch upon these points.
Reserves are similar to reserves which are used in paragliding. They are more or less same. Only thing is that in paragliding you carry your reserve on a harness or it is front loaded. In paramotoring backpacks, especially you can carry one. Nowadays people are carrying two reserves. One is front loading and one is kept on the cage on the top. You can. Okay. And there are two handles compared to paragliding. There's only one handle, but in paramotoring there are two handles. You can reach from here also. You can reach from here also. But one thing is for sure that when you deploy a reserve with a paramotor, you have to make sure that the engine is off.
Okay.
Or if you can't put off the engine, it has to be in idle position, and you have to be very careful that the reserve which comes out, it should not get sucked into the propeller behind. The best thing is that if you can kill the engine and then pull the reserve and throw it far away from your paramotors, It should not get entangled into the cage because the cage is huge. So therefore, you have to be very careful that you throw it off the cage and then it will deploy. And it is this procedure is same, just like paragliding. It will come down.
So that descent rate is also similar.
The paramotor reserves are a little bigger than the paragliding reserves because of the additional
Extra weight.
Yeah.
Right. Do the structures have crumple zones or any additional designs that are developing in these times?
Yes, the paramotor itself cannot be made very strong, and just because there is a weight limitation, so the paramotor itself becomes a crumple object.
Right.
So there are a lot of people who have fallen, even if they fall on the side and they fall on the back, except they fall on the front. If they fall on any other direction, the paraglider takes the impact, and of course the propeller is broken, the cage is broken. Some people find it a little more painful to break the paramotor than to break their own legs, because they say that we will be able to repair our legs, but the broken propeller is going to cost them a bomb. And if it is imported, then they have to spend at least about a lakh and a half, something like that.
Oh. That sounds counterintuitive when we look at it now. But
I've seen people falling on their face to say the paramotor behind.
Oh.
Yes, that is the thing.
Okay. And about the engine, do you see, or can you talk a little bit about maintaining the engines, and what is the typical cycle? How many hours does the engine last, and the life of an engine? Does the engine wear out faster, or the wings? A little bit about
No, the wing wears out faster. The engine can last. It is if you have to ask any manufacturer, the manufacturer will say the life of the engine is indefinite. You have to just keep maintaining it. You have to keep changing the bearings. You have to keep changing the piston, some parts, whichever. There is a schedule which starts from 5 hours. So there's a maintenance schedule for 5 hours, 10 hours, 50 hours, 100 hours, and it goes on. I mean, 100 hours and 100 hours and 100 hours and 100 hours.
Okay.
But every 5 hours there is a maintenance schedule. So you have to maintain whatever little things have to be changed or looked into. They have to be looked into every 5 hours. So if you follow the standards of 5 hours, 10 hours, 50 hours, and 100 hours, your paramotor is not going to give you any trouble. The problem is that you will not do that. You will keep flying. We will treat paramotor just like paragliders. Once the paragliding is over, we'll just hold it and we'll not look into it. We'll keep it and we'll pull it out when we have to go back into flying again. We'll not inspect the glider at all. Just like that, we are also spoiled people. We will also not look into. Once the flying is over, we will look into a beer bar. We will not look into because I have been always emphasizing that look into your paramotor. You have flown for an hour or so. Look into your paramotor. Check everything, because it is better to find if there is a crack now than to find the crack when you are doing your pre-flight in the morning, because you are come for flying there and you find a crack or something broken, and
the flying day is gone.
That day is gone. So there are more chances of things going wrong in a paramotoring compared to paragliding, because paragliding the structure of the paramotor
is only so much.
Yes. That complication is not.
Absolutely. And do you see that the current trend in the engines, does it have a lot improved reliability, and it doesn't conk? What about conking off of engines? Have you experienced or not so much?
For people who are not following the set standards, and you have to take a paramotor just like an aircraft, and you have to follow all the principles of maintaining an aircraft. That's for sure. It's not a motorcycle or it's not a car engine.
All right.
So if you are doing that, then there is a very small chance that a paramotor will conk off in air. Okay.
All right.
And it is not very dangerous because even if it conks off, you have got a paraglider, you can glide and get down. The only problem is that the paramotor can take you to places where it is dangerous to land. And if if you are not very good at maintenance, then there is always a chance that your paramotor can conk off. The problem with India is that we know something known as jugaad, and that has caused a lot of accidents in paramotoring in India. Okay, which is not the case in many of the advanced countries in Europe. No, they will not allow you to do any kind of jugaad there, because they will not allow you to fly at that place if they find something not done aviation wise. In India, that is the problem. There is no control, so therefore people do. Out of 10 paramotors, about 8 paramotors conk off in air just because they are not being maintained properly.
All right.
Out of 10 paramotors, there will be one paramotor which will conk off for something which that pilot also is learning, and it is a surprise coming to him. Even there are about 1,000 reasons why a paramotor will conk off if
Yes.
it is not maintained well.
So being prudent in maintaining the paramotor engines is the key to have safe
Absolutely. And good fuel and good oil.
Good fuel, yes.
And good oil.
Okay, a last point.
If I want to train somebody well, I want him to be a very good paramotor pilot, and he has to have the best of the equipment, and he has to maintain the engine. I have my heart into that student. I will just tell him one thing: use good oil and good fuel. That's it.
Right.
That's it. That is the secret of doing paramotoring. A continued paramotoring for a long time without any trouble.
Noted. Okay, one last point before we move on to the questions is about the permissions involved, and you already touched upon the airspaces. Can you talk a bit more about that? Flying a paramotor, it has its inherent noise, its attraction, because it appears like an aircraft already. And the permissions involved, or the restrictions, or are there more restrictions to it as compared to paragliding?
I think restrictions on paragliding, free-flying paragliding and paramotoring is same, because people don't understand the difference. The authorities who are restricting this, primarily Pakistan has to solve those problems because of terrorism. A paraglider pilot and a paramotor pilot are also looked at as if they are terrorists in the country. It is there are a lot of agencies, a lot of authorities, a lot of government organizations which interfere with this sport, like Air Force, then airspace, then Civil Aviation Department, Airports Authority, then the collector himself. He does not want something flying in his territory.
Right.
Then the police department, they don't know what it is, so they don't want trouble in their area. Then the Gram Panchayat, the tourism department. People don't have information about it, and they foresee trouble.
Trouble, yes.
They say okay, for some time it's okay, but the media has spoiled the name of the sport to quite an extent. So therefore, everybody is a little scared of or very
extra cautious.
Cautious. So therefore, they will ask you to go and get permissions, and they don't know where the permissions are available or where to obtain permission from, and the paramotor pilot also does not know where to go and obtain permissions. If you have to go to one department, they will throw you to, they will push you to some other department, and that department will throw you to some other department. And ultimately, DGCA is of no use. They will not help you also. It does not come under them, so therefore,
not regulated.
So you all do it the way you want to do it. Of course, they also mentioned that you have to take permission from the ATC. But ATC says that we don't have any guidelines, so therefore we cannot give you permission.
Right.
Some places they have given permission. ATC has given permissions. Some restricted permissions are given by ATC at some places, but not all the places.
So it all goes in a similar administrative loop as paragliding permissions go. Just that since we have so much of equipment and motor and engine, it's quite easy to get into.
Yeah. Before I forget, I am working with the government of Goa. So, since I'm attached to the government of Goa, tourism department, I have got ATC clearance for operating the entire Goa, North and South Goa, state of Goa. But that ATC clearance has come to me with great difficulties despite the government's backing. So forget about an individual going and getting permission. The best thing is that if you want to do flying, you just go outskirts of some place where you will not find much habitation around the place. Pull out a paramotor, fly for about half an hour or so, and be friendly to the people around you. That's it. We have been doing it for so many years, about 25 years we have been doing it. We have not taken any permissions. We are still flying and we are happy. So if you have got some sight and if you know some of the people there and maybe some police guys around there, they see that you are not a threat, so they will allow you to fly. There's no problem. Don't ever go to any department to get a formal permission. It is not possible. Full stop.
Okay, so I think that partially answers the question that had come up in the earlier question queue, which is why don't we see so many paramotors flying in India?
Exactly.
Is there any other reason you see for not many?
Cost is one more. Cost is one more thing, and then the training is very stringent. It is like a commando training. It is very tiring, very tiring.
Yes.
But once you have done paramotoring, then you will not look into paragliding all that easily. And I mean, you will not go into paragliding because you know the capabilities of the paramotors are far more than paragliding.
Right.
Paraglidings have got serious limitations, but I can tell you there are two different sports, and both are very enjoyable.
Sure.
Paragliding has got its own charm, and I cannot compare both of them because both are good at their respective places. They are really good at respective places. I cannot say that paragliding is lower or lesser compared to paramotoring. No, not at all. I will never say that because I have done both, and both are really good. They have got their own charm.
Absolutely. So with that, are we okay to take the next round of questions? There are many questions, and send me threats if I don't take questions now. Okay, with the question queue, Shri, is your question answered, or do you want to?
I got one more question.
Okay,
the first question got answered. Hello, Eric sir.
Yes, Shri. Please go. I'm fine. Nice to see you.
Yeah, good to see you this forum.
Okay.
My question was, why we are not seeing more paramotors in the paragliding sites. I think you answered that. It's because of the restrictions and all.
There are two things in this, because there will be a little resistance from the paragliding community if there are paramotors flying, because there are physical difficulties, for people who are doing paragliding. They have to climb up hills and they have to walk and they have to carry that load and all, and they will find they are sitting for hours together on top of a hill waiting for the correct conditions. And there you'll find that somebody comes, opens up his paramotor, and they start flying. You feel that often they have seen that what is this? What nonsense is this? And we are sitting for hours together, for days together, and these people are coming every day, they're flying and they're gone. And they go on cross countries and they fly. I mean, that is the thing, yeah. I shouldn't be here. You're at a wrong place. Actually, it's not. I know that has got a different charm. This has got a different charm. This has got different set of difficulties. That is not set of difficulties. You cannot compare. But the people who can see paramotoring happening around them, they will say that okay, there's noise, but it's acceptable. Yeah, at least you get to fly, and you can go any direction. You can fly in any direction. You can go to that lake, that mountain, that forest. You can go for about an hour or fly for 2 hours. You can go high. You can come down at your will. Why shouldn't we go into paramotoring? So therefore, people may drift into paramotoring from paragliding, and that will not be allowed by paraglider. And of course, it's a community, and we should respect their trade. I have been a paraglider pilot, and we started with paragliding, and I wouldn't have liked anybody coming there and infringing into my area when I'm training people with so much of difficulties. We are trying to train people on paragliding, and somebody comes and shows, yeah, what this is that is nonsense. तुम लोग जो कर रहे हो, क्या कर रहे हो? Come into paramotoring. So it should not be done, and I think it is not done. And it's a mutual. It's mutual.
Yeah.
It's
So my
mutual.
second question is, you spoke about reserve. So in paragliding, we do SIV. So
Yes.
so in paramotor, do you have a similar practice of throwing reserve? No.
Yeah, of course you have. You have got SIVs in paramotoring also.
Okay.
And you have all kinds of acros in paramotoring also. All the acros which are done in paragliding can be done in paramotoring, plus more because you have got an engine. But one thing is there, since you have got an engine, it's an external force which is there, which is an unnatural force, which is not a natural force, because free-flying paragliders fly with just natural forces. You cannot induce external unnatural force, whereas it is possible with a paramotor. And pumping power at the wrong place and at the wrong time will be disastrous. So therefore, the acro flying or SIVs in paramotoring is different. So generally, if anybody wants to do paramotoring acro or SIV, they have to go through paragliding SIV first, and then gradually graduate into acro of paramotoring. Paramotoring acro is much dangerous compared to paramotor SIV is much dangerous compared to paragliding. Okay, because of the force. If you SIV for paramotoring is done at a much higher level, of at paramotoring, and you have to have many hours of paramotor flying. Then only you are taken to acro flying or SIV into paramotoring. But that may not be the case with paragliding SIV. You can do maybe P2 and then you can go and join for SIV. It is possible. Yeah. Shri, you can go ahead if you want to ask any more.
Yeah. No, sir. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Shri. Nagendra sir, you have a question?
Yeah.
Is that
Hi, Eric
answered
sir, how are
already?
you? Nagendra is here.
Nagendra sir is more qualified, or Nagendra sir is more knowledgeable than me. I'm sure.
Udri, thank you for organizing this, and Bhujan, you pulled out really amazing topics and questions. So I have a question which was not touched upon here. For this community who's not from paramotoring, I know that Eric sir has taught 95% or more people who do paramotoring in India, all of them almost. So I want to ask you, Eric sir, that what is the future of talent you see here on international platforms for competitions? Because in paragliding, a lot of competitions are happening, domestic and international, and also Asian Games included paragliding. But how do you see Indian talent for international competitions in paramotoring?
Paragliding has developed to quite an extent, and people have been going for competitions in paragliding more often than paramotoring. I think I attribute that to one simple reason, is that some places paragliding has got some recognition from the government, and they are helping them. And there are sites which are dedicated for paragliding, so you can do a lot of practice. And paragliding has developed, the industry of paragliding has developed very well, and there are a lot of people who are training. There are good instructors and good pilots and good equipment available. All those things has developed very well in paragliding, free-flying paragliding in India. But whereas that is not the case with paramotoring, because paramotoring is still under scanner. There are people, the authorities are still not willing, the government is still not willing to look after paramotoring, or they don't want to give them all that free hand. There are no dedicated places to practice paramotoring. So it is difficult for paramotoring to come up to that extent, and people going to participate in competitions and all, unless and until some agency, some government agency comes forward and says that, okay, we will give you a place, we will give you a space, and we will have people, we will promote people to come and train you people to do advanced flying or cross countries or competition flying, all that. It is only possible only when the government intervenes. Otherwise, you have to do it the way it has been done these days. You have to go to some place where some kind of um, space is available to fly without any hindrance. You keep practicing, and that may not be uh, accessible to all the people. So it will be restricted to some people only. So therefore, um, there will be constraints for paramotoring. But again, it depends on people how how much they push and go ahead, keep practicing, and they can go and participate into competitions. But
Sure.
I have also noticed that there are people who are going abroad. They are getting themselves trained, like in Thailand or elsewhere, and they get their training done for competition flying, and then they compete in paramotoring. But again, it's a very expensive affair for most of the
Sure.
Indians.
Sure. Thank you, sir.
Yeah. So,
So as a
and Nagendra sir happens to be one of the competition pilots for paramotoring. He's been
Right.
in competitions, and I'm very proud of him. And there are
Yes.
a few more people. PR Singh, Captain PR Singh is also there, who takes a lot of initiative going. So there are big names,
Yes.
in paramotoring.
Vijay, Vijay is here also.
Vijay,
All the
Vijay sir is also there, and Sukumar is there,
pilots.
Mangesh is there, and
Mangesh is there. Yes.
yeah, and Ron Ryan are also there. My
Ron
own
Raina
sons,
there.
yeah, they are also good pilots. And they fly. They are good instructors also, and I have been hearing about them. And I don't go and train people now. I am in the background, but they train, and Nagendra sir will be able to tell more about these instructors which are coming up these days. Anyway, sir, please go ahead. Any more questions?
Yes, many more, sir. I just about to, state this that you and a team of Wings and Flights, and I know Nagendra sir, Vijay sir, and so many seniors over here have been representing India in national as well as international competitions. So it's really an honor to be getting so much inputs from all of you experienced pilots and members of the community. I mean, it's great that we have access to you all. So taking it ahead, I think Soham has a question. Don't have a mic. He has written it on the chat. Yes, you want to say something, Eric, sir?
One thing I want to tell you
Yes.
is that sometimes, if it is possible,
Yeah.
we should have a meeting conducted with Vijay Sethi sir. He
Yes.
has got wide experience, and he has revolutionized into um, PPC, that
Yes,
is power
power
parachute.
parachuting.
That's another sport.
Right.
Paragliding, free flying paragliding, paramotoring, and powered parachutes.
Yes.
So he is the master in that. So someday you can organize a meet with him. It will be interesting. He has got a lot of information, stories, experience.
Oh, definitely.
It will be interesting.
Definitely, I'll put it forward.
Yeah.
Okay, so Soham doesn't have a mic. He has put the question on chat. I'll read it out for you. Without taking any formal permission, how to ensure there'll be no interference with other aircraft? Also, is it possible to gain a few thousand meters and float for a long time and not get into any trouble? That's the question.
If you are to fly for many days or many years, don't fly above 1,000 feet, and don't fly closer than 50 kilometers from an airport. That's what I say. and fly at a place where you are very sure that there is no air traffic around that place. And never ever venture very high. You cannot, once in a while, maybe you know that you watch that airspace and you see that there are no aircraft flying in that zone. Maybe once in a while you can go up to 2,000 feet or 3,000 feet and come back just for the heck of it, but not to practice it often, because one day or the other somebody is going to cite you and they are going to report, and there will be trouble coming your way. You can fly for a number of days if you are restricting your flying for less than 500 feet. And believe me, flying below 500 feet is great fun than flying anywhere above 1,000, 2,000, 3,000 feet. There's nothing up there. Everything, all the beauty of the world is very close to you at about 500 feet.
Yes. So I'm sure the official stance is that we do not want to violate any restriction
Exactly.
put in India,
Exactly.
like you mentioned earlier.
Exactly.
Do not go near airports. Do not fly in restricted land. Maybe above protected areas, which are strict no fly. Like for example, in Bir, there's Dharamshala. You're not supposed to fly about Dalai Lama's stay place.
Yeah.
So
Yes.
don't deviate from these norms. Be within
Yeah, all the army, military, defense installations, you don't fly around the place.
Okay.
Don't fly on cities. Don't fly at restricted places, dams, and all those places. Don't fly where people may doubt that you are flying at this place for maybe some reason,
Yes.
And don't fly where you can
Get in trouble.
media can catch you. Media can catch you there. That's it.
Okay, so next question would be from Babuji. Babuji, please unmute and ask your question.
Hi, Eric.
Hello, sir.
How are you? Do you remember
I'm fine.
I'd come with Pendu for winching to Pune long time back.
Oh, once, yeah. Glide filter, yeah.
Once.
Yes,
Okay,
yes.
I just wanted to know two questions. Number one is that you just mentioned about people falling on the side or falling at the back, when
Yeah.
they take off. I want to know the reason for that, number one. And second question of mine is, have you stopped winching in Pune?
We have stopped operations in Pune because Air Force does not allow us to fly anymore.
All right. Yeah. And what is the reason?
Reason is that they say that there are about 80 choppers in the city itself, and they keep moving at random. Okay, in and around city, and they are flying at about 500 feet. So therefore, they say that they don't want to be hindered, and they don't want any job. And many chopper pilots have reported that they have seen some flying activity at certain places. And the moment there is a report, the first call comes to me that, Eric, are you flying or anybody is flying from your community at this place? So I have to confirm that, okay, if somebody was flying, yes, sir, they were flying, but I will tell them. We will tell them not to fly, henceforth. So gradually they have killed us, and we are finished. We are done with in Pune, so we go elsewhere. We fly in Ratnagiri and elsewhere, like we go about 50, 60 kilometers away from Pune city, and we fly there.
Okay, and what my first question was, you just touched on the point that
Yes.
motoring, a lot of people get,
Mr. Cancel.
Pardon, sir, you're cutting. Yeah, your voice is cutting once again.
Yeah.
They're falling on the side. Yeah.
On the side, or they fall at the back.
Back,
what is the reason for that? I just want to know.
It is if there is a side wind, it's a strong side. They have landed or something, they are trying to take off, and the wind is coming from the side. The paraglider will yank you on the side, and they can topple. Or if they lose their balance, they can fall on either of the side, because the paramotor is behind you. So therefore, wherever the tilt is there, it will load you on that side, and then you can fall. There are some reasons like that, and sometimes you are not very good at balancing the glider, so therefore you are not able to control the glider. So the glider tilted on one side, and you fell on one side. And falling behind is maybe you are not seated in the harness properly. So therefore, when you landed, the load behind you pulled you behind, and you fell down. Or maybe when you're taking off or something like that, you gave too much of power, and then something happened. The angle of attack was too much, and then you fell on your back. There could be many reasons why you can fall. Or sometimes the winds are very strong. You lifted the glider up, the glider got pulled back. Suddenly, one jerk, and it yanks you. It is a very common accident. Generally, you get yanked back and you fall on your back.
Okay.
Yeah, but I have noticed one thing that people fall more often, but they don't get injured, but they break the cage and the propellers very often.
Okay.
Injury is very less compared to paragliding. Paragliding, you fall, the first damage is to the pilot, and the rest is to the equipment. Very little to the equipment, unless until you have gone into a tree or something like that. Otherwise, the damage is more on the pilot compared to paramotor. Paramotors, the damage is more on the equipment than on the pilot.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
you said, but you said but you said the blades are very expensive, right?
Expensive, yeah. That will pinch you quite hard, and it will ensure, and it will teach you a lesson that, boss, don't next time don't mess up.
Okay.
You know, you practice better. Have your
And
instructor, and generally compared to paragliding, the student is stuck with the instructor for a longer time because there's a lot to learn compared to paragliding. Paragliding, you can get rid of the instructor very soon.
and these blades and all are readily available in
And they
India.
are readily available. They are in stock. We are also manufacturing the blades. We also import carbon blades. So they are kept ready, and that is one thing which keeps on moving uh,
Okay.
very often.
Okay. Thank you. Thank
Yeah,
you.
yeah. Most of the parts are available. With us, at least, we have got cage frames. We know how often people break what. So
Right.
those things we keep them ready. So we say that you fly, you take a chance, and we are there to take care of it.
Thank you.
I,
Thank you, Eric.
thank
Yeah.
you, Guruji. I think I've heard this one before when I mentioned it on chat. Better to break the prop than legs.
Yeah, yeah, of course. And then when you come, you know that you're going to fall. You'll invariably lift your legs up, and the cage is below you.
Let
So
it
the cage is going to touch first, and then it will crumple, and then all the impact, all that energy is absorbed by the cage and the frame and the engine and the propeller. They break and they take all the impact. So you are safe. That way.
Although what you're saying, Erica, is right. It will definitely, pinch you. It will be sort of an expensive lesson. But then again, that equipment is meant to take that. It is designed to take that brunt as well. In similar way in which paragliding harnesses are also meant to take some brunt, but that's not at all an expensive lesson. But this is for a mistake that we have committed. So we can sum it up there. We can go to the next question, Babuji, if your questions are
Yeah.
answered.
Yeah. Thank you so much. Thank
Thank
you.
you. So, Ryan, you have a question to ask. Please unmute yourself.
Good evening, Eric. Nice to see you on here.
Oh, Ryan, wow, you are here.
Yes, it's my privilege to sit and
Nice to see
hear
you.
from your wide experience on this topic.
Yes, Ryan. Yeah.
So,
Tell me.
one of the questions that keep coming to me is between the two types of wings for paramotoring,
Yeah.
which is reflex and non-reflex, which of the two are more, inherently more safer, or which of the two are more resisting, to collapses during flight
Yes.
because of turbulence or thermals?
No, there was a disconnection. No, there was a disconnection. I did not hear what you said.
Yes, we could not hear you. Could you please
Repeat.
say it again, please, Ryan? The audio?
Okay, can you guys hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. The question that keeps, I keep coming across, and I would really like to know is between the two types of wings that are available for paramotoring, one is reflex and non-reflex, which of the two is inherently more safer and resistant to collapses during flight, because of turbulence or thermals?
Both are good. Both are good. Both are safe. And only reflex has got more speed, And
Eric sir, before you continue with the answer, I'd request you to please introduce these two types of wings in very brief to the community, since those are pretty new to the paragliding.
The ordinary wings are the normal wings are the similar wings, just like paragliding wings. You cannot. There is no difference between the design of those paragliding wings as far as the aerofoil section is concerned. Whereas a reflex wing has the aerofoil where it starts from front and it goes behind the trailing edge, it goes up. It goes up. Okay. Instead of going straight down, okay, it's like, it goes up like this and then goes down. This is an ordinary wing. Okay. Whereas in a reflex wing, the trailing edge goes up back again.
Right.
So the reflex wing has got lesser angle of incidence. So angle of incidence is the manufacturer's angle, because the angle of attack, if you are from the trailing edge to the leading edge and to the horizontal plane, okay, that is the angle. And the reflect wing, you will notice that it is the angle of attack is much lesser compared to a normal wing. So therefore, the chances of stalling is much lesser. You can really pull the glider to a greater angle of attack compared to not stall. But then there is one more problem we have noticed is that it is prone to frontal collapses because of lesser angle of incidence. Angle of incidence is the angle maintained by the manufacturer. If the manufacturer designs the glider and if he is standing in a place where he inflates the glider and is there, whatever angle it is making to the horizontal plane, that is the angle of incidence. That is the manufacturer's angle. And when you apply brake, the glider changes the angle of attack. That is angle of attack. Okay, there's a difference between both. So the angle of incidence with a reflect wing is much, much lesser compared to the angle of attack, angle of incidence of a normal glider. So the glider, which are the reflect wings, are much more performing. They can fly faster, and you can do cross countries and aerobatics and all with a reflex wing much better than a normal. It is, if you want to progress into good amount of flying and performance flying, you should drift into a reflex wing more than normal wing. Normal wings are for people who are doing leisure flying and they don't want to get into any kind of trouble. They want to have a docile wing, and those are normal wings. Of course, in normal wings also you have got fast wings, and they are good competition wings also. But now I think the trend is towards reflex wings. Yeah, it is good to have reflex wing. They are a little more expensive because of the design, and they are much in demand these days. Yeah, Ryan, if I have answered your question. You are not visible, Ryan?
Yeah, you are.
Now you are visible.
Yeah, thank you, Eric. I'm good.
Yeah. And Ryan, I'm very proud of you also. And again, it is very commendable that you have manufactured these electric paramotors. I have been hearing about it. I have Ron and Ryan, my sons, they keep talking about you, and many people talk about your engines. I'm really impressed by the engines which you have manufactured, and you have got some future there. Yeah.
Thank you, Eric.
One day we will meet together. Maybe I would like to fly one of your paramotors.
Absolutely, it will be my pleasure. Please come.
Yes.
Okay. Ryan, would you like to introduce maybe in really quickly what you have done and what is the plan? So just so that the entire community is aware of what Eric sir is applauding you for.
I think, Bhushan, you should conduct another meeting, especially with Ryan, because Ryan will have lots to say.
Yes.
Okay, you cannot sum it up in this small. It will be injustice on him. That's what I feel. Ryan, if I am wrong, You can go ahead.
Yes, so I just requested him to introduce. I'm sure there will be a couple of more sessions from the forward paragliding perspective, and going more in depth into some of these topics. So Ryan, if you don't mind, could you just maybe in a minute talk about your venture and your
Ryan is not visible again.
Hi guys, can you hear me now? Can you see me?
yes.
Yeah.
Okay. Sure. Thanks. So power paragliding was my passion, and so I learned it about 3.5 years ago, and ever since I wanted an electric paramotor, because of uh, the perceived benefits of lower maintenance, quieter operation, better thrust, etc. So I I set myself to work to make one, and within about a year and a half, I had a working model, and it was good enough for me. But when my friends saw what it was, they said, "Why don't you make one for me as well?" And so I took an extra step to make it into a product. And just about say about 8-10 months ago, I actually created this product. It is now called the Skywalker, and the current version of it is the Skywalker Marathon. It's you get some pretty fantastic flight times for an electric paramotor. Uh, I'm about a 90-kilo pilot, and I get about 70 minutes of flight nonstop.
Wow.
Just recently, I completed 33.3 kilometers of nonstop flight. I get pretty phenomenal thrust. I've measured it up to about 75 kilos, but I'm pretty sure it does 80 as well, except my equipment cannot measure that much. So once I have a more standard equipment to measure that thrust, I'll probably report on the actual thrust that it's giving. Recently, um, uh, recently at Vasai with
Samson De Silva.
Siddharth, yes, and Samson, we tested it on a trike, and to my surprise, it operated pretty well on a trike as well. So there's sufficient thrust, sufficient long range in that, and I'll be happy to take more questions and maybe talk about it on another session.
Yes, absolutely. I definitely see we need a follow-up session with a lot more in-depth talk about this and many other topics which are coming up on the chat as well. So do we see a Tesla of paramotors coming in?
You're too kind.
And are you inspired by Star Wars by any chance?
Actually, I'm a big fan of Star Wars, no doubt, but the name didn't come from Star Wars.
I figured it was Skywalker, and next you would say it's called Luke, and I'm like, okay.
No, not really. But the name actually came because we were trying to look up a name that kind of captured the essence of this sport.
Yes.
We were thinking of names like Cloud Hopper or Quick Stride in the Sky or something. And one of the guys who was working with me says, "Why not Skywalker?" I said, "That's good, except wouldn't George Lucas be upset if I stole his name?" And they're like, I don't think he would mind. This is a very different, field. It's aviation. It's not really, entertainment or something like that. So that's how the name came about.
That's really interesting. Just going on a light note, I hope you don't mind. That was very interesting of you to share your inputs, Ryan. We'll definitely would love to talk about it more in a separate session. So thank you for that. And yes, thank you for the question. Erixa, would you like to add a few more things? We are approaching almost 90 minutes now, so we are close to the end of the session. If you would like to have any closing comments, there are a few questions still there in the queue. But
please go ahead with the questions.
Fine. We'll go ahead with the questions. Okay. Yeah. So next question in line is Vijay. Vijay, can you please come on line?
Yeah. Hi, everybody, and good evening, Eric, sir.
Vijay, sir.
Yeah.
Nice to see you. You look different, though.
Yeah. Thank you. In the start of session, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay. Guys, I'm not a very technical person, but I'm a flyer, and I'm proudly I say I'm a student of Eric sir. He taught me, and I'm flying my PPC now. So I have to say very small things, and बहुत थोड़ी सी बात मैं करना चाहूँगा. I started my flying in February 2016. Not Eric sir, actually Ryan Erickson का जो बेटा है, Ryan ने मुझे training दी. I took a 3 hours training, and from that 3 hours training, from 16th February 2016 to till date, I have completed my 232 hours of flying, and I'm feeling proud for that.
That's great, sir. That's great.
And जैसे ही टॉपिक शुरू हुआ तो ठीक है, डिस्कशन में आता है कि प्रॉब्लम्स, डिफिकल्टीज, पैरामोटरिंग करने के लिए ये दिक्कत होती है, वो होती है. यस, देयर आर डिफिकल्टीज, बट इससे प्यारा स्पोर्ट्स मेरे ख्याल से दुनिया में कोई नहीं है. एंड इतनी ज्यादा भी डिफिकल्टीज नहीं है ये स्पोर्ट को फॉलो करने के लिए, अगर हम थोड़ा सा थरोली जाते हैं. जैसे कि परमिशंस की बात आ रही थी, एवरीबॉडी, मतलब बहुत सी जगह से बात आ रही है कि परमिशंस नहीं मिल पाते, नहीं मिलती हैं. अगर हम जैसे सैमसंग डिसिल्वा की बात करें, उनका वसई के अंदर 100% उनके पास परमिशंस है. अहमदनगर में हम फ्लाई करते हैं विद 100% परमिशंस. ओके, एंड अगर किसी को परमिशन के बारे में दिक्कत है, किसी को ये स्पोर्ट शुरू करने के बारे में दिक्कत है ट्रेनिंग के लिए, तो एरिक सर जैसे महान लोग बैठे हुए हैं. बट टेक्निकली अगर कहीं पे कोई दिक्कत आती है तो एनी टाइम एनीवन कैन कॉल मी कि इसकी परमिशंस के लिए हमको कैसे आगे जाना पड़ेगा. हम लोग एक अपना ग्रुप भी बना रहे हैं जहां से हम विदाउट से एनी चार्ज तो छोड़िए, हर एक के लिए हेल्प करने के लिए बैठे हैं, और किसको परमिशन चाहिए वो परमिशन दिलाने के लिए हम उनको मदद करेंगे, उनको गाइड करेंगे. तो नागेंद्र सर भी है मेरे साथ, नागेंद्र सर भी इसके लिए हेल्प करेंगे. तो बस दिस इज द थिंग आई वांट टू शेयर. भूषण.
Okay, thank you very much for coming in with that very helpful note, sir. I'm sure there are many enthusiasts and budding enthusiasts who will receive this talk, not only live, but they'll follow it on YouTube as well. And this will definitely, help them learn so much more, especially with all you experienced and affluent people in the flying community. That's I guess the beauty of it.
Yeah.
Free flying or powered or any other way of flying, I guess the beauty comes with it. Thank you so much for your inputs.
Thank you.
So do you have a question, sir?
No,
okay,
I'm finished.
Okay, thank you, sir. So we'll move ahead. Vinay, can you come in? Can you unmute and ask your question, please? Sunil?
Yeah, Sunil here. Good evening, Eric sir.
Good evening, Sunil. Nice to see you here.
Sir. Yeah, again. I don't want to waste time, so I'll make two very quick questions, sir.
Okay.
And this is regarding the hang points. Okay, now a lot of
Sunil, you are a veteran and you are an instructor. I wonder what question you will be having.
Yeah, actually, this is I'm asking for many of my friends from PG community.
Okay.
I always get frequent this question from them because now sir, there are a lot of different hang points are coming up in paramotoring. Like high hang point, mid hang point, low active, low fixed, like that. No?
Yes,
so PG guys always ask me which hang points can be better, which hang point I should advise them to take off and fly in the thermals and do some cross countries and come back to land. Which hang points will help them really well through the coring? That is the first question. Second one also I shoot.
Let us finish with the first one. Okay, then you can ask me.
Okay.
See, earlier older paragliders, the hang points were higher, so therefore it was very docile and they were very stable. It is very difficult to mess up with higher hang points because the glider and the paramotor flies very, very safe. And so therefore that was recommended in the earlier times. But there was a problem with high angle points that to do any sharp maneuvers or to take a sharp turn or something like that is very difficult because it is so robust and it is heavy. You need to really struggle to put it into maybe a spiral or maybe a sharp turn. So there was limitation, but it was very good for beginners. Later on, if you have bought a paramotor with a high end point and then you want to do some maneuvers and some acro maneuvers, something like that, that was not all that possible. So therefore, there was a demand to have a lower hang point so that you will be able to do those acros also once you have got the experience. But what will be the state right in the beginning? I don't want to spend into two different paramotors, one with a high hang point and one with a lower hang point. So manufacturers started manufacturing mid hang points for people who are beginners also. Mid hang points also are today, they are well designed and they can still take, they are quite safe to fly with mid hang points. And you can do a lot of maneuvers, which high hang points are, there is a restriction on high hang points to do maneuvers. But mid hang points, you can turn the glider much faster. It is much agile. You can get into some kind of steep turns and spirals, and all those things are possible with the help of a mid hang point. And they are also very good for taking off. Earlier, the higher rank points, the risers, when you would take off, the risers would come right on your face because they are up there. But lower down, just like paragliding, hang points, the mid hang points, they are good. And there are hang points which are lower than the mid hang points. They are for competition pilots. They are very twitchy hang points. It's not possible for a beginner or a simple pilot who has got less hours who can take up those very low hang points. Mid hang points are good nowadays. Most of the parameters are coming with mid hang points. Very, very rare you will find high hang points nowadays.
So that'll be really helpful for the PG pilots who progress to paramotoring
Absolutely.
to do the coring or thermaling.
Absolutely, absolutely. They are very good for thermaling also. Yes.
Yeah. And the second
And you
question is
get the feel of flying also with a low hang point.
Just like a PG harness, yes.
Yes, yes, just like a PG harness compared to the high hang point. That is also very important aspect.
Understood, sir. And the second question is the same question the PG community asked to me is, we have a paraglider, and when we add the element of thrust or a motor to the paraglider, what is the differences happen to the glider's dynamics when the thrust element is added to a glider?
The paramotor comes with torque in it. It will start turning the opposite direction of the rotation of the propeller. If the propeller is rotating right, generally the propeller rotates left rotating propeller. So they will tend to turn the engine to the right and the harness and the pilot also to the right. So there will be a tendency of the glider to take a turn to the right. The moment you take off, it will have a tendency to go to the right all the while. So therefore, it is nowadays you get paragliders which have got some adjustments in the risers where they counter this torque effect. The torque effect is the main problem in a paramotor because you do not want the paraglider to go to the right. So therefore, you need to have some kind of adjustment either in the riser or in the bars, the distant bars which are there on the paramotor, which is offset a little to counter the right rotation. And you can fly any paraglider with the offset of the torque effect, that is
to cancel it.
Yeah.
Okay. Right, sir. Thanks a lot.
Yeah.
Hope to see you soon again with a different.
Torque is the main problem with a paramotor, and that disturbs the glider.
what about the pitching up of the glider? When the motor pushes us, the glider angle of attack, and it
Yeah,
pitches
but
us
if you are using a paramotor glider, then that problem is
with
not
the
there.
risers. Yeah,
Yeah, paramotor risers and paramotor glider.
with the motor risers.
That is not a problem. It does
Thank you,
not.
sir.
Yeah.
Thank you, sir. Thanks a lot.
Okay.
Thank
Thank you.
you,
Thank you. Eric, sir, we are well past 90 minutes. How are
Yeah.
you doing on time? Are you okay to take few more
I'm
questions?
okay, but I think the people will be restless. They want to
Oh,
get
no,
on.
no. There are few questions coming in. I'd request them to keep
You can go ahead. You can
one
go
to
ahead.
two each one of them. And
Okay.
Vinay, if you can come in and ask your questions.
Pune is not visible.
Am I audible now?
Yeah. You're
Yes,
visible
you are.
and audible also. Yes, Vinay.
Hello, Eric sir. I have heard a lot about you. So this is the first time
Hope
we are
everything
talking.
good.
Yeah,
Okay.
I am flying paramotor for last 3 years.
Okay.
And since I live in Dehradun, and for my cross country flights, I go up to heights of, let's say, 7,000, 8,000 feet. That is quite normal.
Okay.
So what problems I am facing that when you are at heights,
Mm-hmm.
then if your engine shuts down,
Mm-hmm.
it cools in seconds.
Correct. Absolutely.
And getting the engine
Restart.
started, since it is a
We'll get
two-stroke
it.
engine, it's a very
Yes.
painful process.
Yes.
And if you are using electric start also, the battery backup at such heights, it discharge very quickly.
Exactly. Absolutely.
So I am looking for a 4-stroke engine with battery start, auto start option. So that's why I was asking for the 4-stroke engines. But still, I think we are yet to see the best possible combination for 4-stroke engine with electric start.
Let us start now. Maybe what you can do is with this is it will not be able. I will not be able to cover it in this forum. You can contact me. I will give you some suggestions on post-stroke engines also. Okay, you can take down my number.
Can it be tried that that battery can be armored or some insulation can be done for the battery so that battery doesn't die for electric start in 2-stroke engine?
No, battery will get discharged only when you start cranking the engine. And the cranking of the engine will take longer time to crank the engine when it is cold. Generally, it's like in the mornings also, it is very difficult to start an engine with just the battery. So therefore, what I tell my people is that you first flip the propeller a couple of times and then you start, because the engine has to rotate a little and it should have a little bit of temperature inside. So you try to start the engine with the flipping, and after about 8-10 attempts, you start with the battery. Okay, but if you have to fly that high, then I would advise you to keep the idling a little higher and don't switch off the engine at all. You cannot keep it
That is what I do.
Yeah, but you should
That
not.
is what I always do. Yeah, I never switch it off, but
Correct.
it happens that since you are idling also,
Yeah, it
by
will.
mistake also.
Yeah,
By mistake
therefore I
also
said
it
that
can
it
die.
should be little more than the idling speed. It should be little more than the idling speed, maybe 2000 RPM. You keep it at 2000 RPM. It will, when you come to landing, you will have a little thrust, but you have to handle that. Okay, you cannot kill the engine unless you can kill the engine up there at about 100 feet and come for landing. But if you want to come for landing with the engine, then the extra idling on the engine will be a little problematic for you for landing, because it will continue to give you a thrust when you don't want to have thrust when it comes to landing. But if you don't want the engine to pump off, you have to keep the engine a little at a higher RPM and idling and keep it there. Yeah. Please go ahead. Anybody else?
Yeah.
Siddharth.
Yes.
Siddharth is the next guy.
Do I share my screen?
Yes, Siddharth.
We can see you. Ask your
Okay. Okay. My question was to begin with paramotoring, not for me, but for the general people who are in the video paragliding pilots. Is it good to start with trike or a foot launch?
It depends on what the student wants. If he wants to fly for himself and hobby flying, then it is better to go for foot launch, backpack. And if he wants to get into commercial flying or training, or he wants to become an instructor, or he wants to get into tandem flying, then he has to go for trike. Or if he does not have the ability of carrying a backpack, and because it's a little more demanding on skill on a backpack compared to a trike. Trike, you don't have to run. The physical um, uh, strain is much lesser compared to a backpack. So older people can get into trike, because if somebody comes to me and if he is a young boy, then like you and dynamic, so I tell them that you go for backpack, because backpack is much more controllable and it's much more agile, and you can enjoy flying, and you don't need to have a bigger vehicle of flying. It is foldable and it becomes compact compared to a trike. So a person who is above say 40 years of age or something like that, I would rather recommend him to get into trike flying, because he may not be able to take up the backpack all that easily. Uh, I think before by the age of 40, you should have learned backpack flying. After 40, you should not get into backpack flying. You should get into trike flying, unless you are determined that you want to get into backpack flying. If you have got the determination and if you have got the energy, you can go backpack. That's the difference between both.
Thank you. Thank you for the answer.
Thank you for the question, Sid. Next in queue is Lakshman. Please unmute yourself.
Hi, Eric.
Yes, Lakshman. After a long time, I'm seeing you. You keep coming to Pune often. Yes. Please go ahead.
मेरा क्वेश्चन ये था, जैसा भी पैराग्लाइडिंग सोलो पायलट के लिए, जैसा हम लोग सी विंग डी विंग फ्लाई करते हैं, कि ऐसा पैरामोटर के लिए कोई मतलब सी विंग मैंने कभी देखा नहीं है, सिर्फ बी विंग देखा है, तो कोई ऐसा एडवांस विंग है कि उसके अंदर जो सी विंग और डी विंग के कंपैरेटिव में?
हाँ, बहुत सारे एडवांस विंग्स हैं जो कंपटीशन के लिए यूज करते हैं, एक्रो के लिए यूज करते हैं, ऐसे बहुत सारे विंग्स हैं, बट उतने एडवांस्ड नहीं रहते हैं पैराग्लाइडिंग जैसे। पैरामोटर के ग्लाइडर्स उतने एडवांस नहीं रखते हैं क्योंकि उतनी जरूरत नहीं पड़ती है, बिकॉज पैरामोटर है तो उतना डिमांड नहीं रहता है। बट देयर आर कंपटीशन विंग्स, और बहुत टिची विंग्स भी है पैरामोटर में भी। कई विंग्स है वो थोड़े से इनपुट में क्विक टर्न करते हैं, एरोबैटिक्स के लिए वो यूज होता है। उस टाइप के ग्लाइडर्स कभी एक नॉर्मल जो जिसका एयर टाइम कम है उसमें खरीदना नहीं चाहिए, और उसमें उड़ान नहीं चाहिए, क्योंकि उतने आसानी से उड़ते नहीं हैं। उसका वो दे आर क्वाइट, they will demand quite a lot of experience. And
अच्छा, और वो विंग ऐसा क्रॉस कंट्री करने के लायक है क्या?
वो उस टाइप के विंग्स है, क्रॉस कंट्री के विंग्स अलग हैं, वो रिफ्लेक्स विंग्स होते हैं, और वो विंग्स अलग है। एक नॉर्मल विंग्स है, एक रिफ्लेक्स विंग्स है, और एक कंपटीशन विंग्स है या एक्रो विंग्स है। ये 3 विंग्स ही है, मैंने तो इतना ही देखा है। और इसमें सबसे अच्छा मैं समझता हूँ कि बीच वाला जो है वो रिफ्लेक्स विंग है, वो सबसे अच्छा विंग है, वो उड़ाना अच्छा रहेगा, क्योंकि उसमें मिक्स ऑफ एवरीथिंग है। बिगिनर के लिए भी अच्छा है, इंटरमीडिएट के लिए भी अच्छा है, और एडवांस के लिए भी अच्छा है।
Thank you, Lakshman. Next is Babuji again. You have something to ask?
No, I think Eric has answered my question about that track, and
okay,
so it's fine. He's answered. Thank you.
Thank you. And the last question, Eric sir, is from Pawan. Pawan, please unmute.
Shalapur.
Yes.
Yes.
Sir, good evening.
Good evening.
Hello. Good evening.
नमस्कार।
मेरा क्वेश्चन ये था कि हम जो विंग्स यूज करते हैं तो आफ्टर कितने आवर्स के बाद उसको रिप्लेस करना चाहिए, या उसके स्ट्रिंग्स वगैरह जो होते हैं वो कितने आवर्स के बाद उसको रिप्लेस करना चाहिए?
100 आवर्स के बाद में उसके लाइन से रिप्लेस करना चाहिए। वैसे देखने जाओ तो ए और बी ज्यादा लोडेड होते हैं पैरामोटरिंग में। तो 100 आवर्स के बाद में अगर आपने ए और बी चेंज कर दिया और सी और डी को छोड़ दिया, कोई प्रॉब्लम नहीं है। आफ्टर 150 आवर्स आपको पीछे की लाइन चेंज करने हैं, सी और डी, और उसके बाद में 100 आवर्स के बाद में आपको पूरे लाइन चेंज करनी है, मतलब 200 आवर्स में पूरे लाइन चेंज करनी है एक साथ। तो जनरली वो बोलते हैं कि 100 आवर्स में चेंज करते हैं, बट लोग नहीं करते हैं इतनी आसानी से। वो यूरोपियन नॉर्म्स है, उसमें 100 आवर्स में लाइन चेंज करने पड़ते हैं सारे। बट अबाउट 200 आवर्स में वैसे भी ग्लाइडर खत्म हो जाता है। पैरामोटरिंग में जल्दी ग्लाइडर घिस जाता है कंपेयर टू पैराग्लाइडिंग।
और विच इज सेफर? अभी इसमें एक पैराशूट बोल के जो ग्लाइडर्स नए आए हैं अभी, वो सेफर है या अपना रेगुलर ग्लाइडर अपना सेफर है?
पैराशूट मतलब पावर पैराशूट्स या
अभी विजय जी जो फ्लाई करते हैं, विजय जी मैक्सिमम उसके ऊपर फ्लाई करते हैं।
हाँ, वो जो वो एक अलग डिफरेंट कैटेगरी की है। उसमें आपको एरोबैटिक्स नहीं करने मिलेगा। वो क्विकली वो एक एयरक्राफ्ट जैसा फ्लाइंग करता है, एक रेगुलर एयरक्राफ्ट जैसा फ्लाइंग करता है। वो काफी सेफ है काफी लोगों के लिए, जो जिनको कोई रिस्क नहीं लेना है, जिनको कुछ अच्छा लंबा क्रॉस कंट्री करना है, जिसको बहुत कॉम्प्लिकेटेड फ्लाइंग नहीं करना है, तो उनके लिए वो अच्छा है। बट उसमें परफॉर्मेंस कम है। वो आपको शार्प टर्न्स नहीं देगा, कोई एरोबैटिक्स नहीं करने देगा, उसमें आप स्टॉल भी नहीं कर सकते हैं। वो बड़ा डोसाइल काइंड ऑफ इक्विपमेंट है। उसके जो उसको उड़ाने के लिए जो कैटेगरी होता है वो अलग होता है। और जिनको लीजर फ्लाइंग करना है, हॉबी फ्लाइंग करना है, जस्ट जाके अपना उड़ाना है और उसको इक्विपमेंट को पैक करके घर लेके जाना है, उनके लिए वो अच्छा है। और जिनको कुछ अलग टाइप का फ्लाइंग करना है, जिसमें फास्ट फ्लाइंग करना है, क्रॉस कंट्रीज जो फास्ट क्रॉस कंट्रीज करने हैं, उसके बाद में उनको एरोबैटिक्स करना है, तो उनके लिए पैरामोटरिंग अच्छा है। ये दो अलग अलग डिफरेंसेस।
ओके ओके, थैंक यू सर, थैंक यू। मिलेंगे एक बार जरूर।
Thank you. And sir, Eric sir, you mentioned the line check. That requirement is for the entire line set. Is that right? Or for the main lines, it is different and different for gallery lines?
For the first 100 hours, you should change. You can change A and B.
Okay.
And leave the C and D.
Okay.
And after about another 50 hours, you change the C and D. 150 hours, you change C and D.
Okay.
And it goes for every 100 hours, 100 hours and 50 hours, 100 hours and 50 hours.
Okay, switching between the main and the gallery lines. Okay, great. Okay, do we have any closing questions? Vijay ji, if you want to unmute yourself, please unmute yourself.
Yeah, Eric sir, अभी आपने कहा कि पीपीसी एंड पीपीजी के बारे में जो आपने कंपैरिजन किया, तो यू आर वेरी राइट कि हम पीपीजी के साथ पैराग्लाइडर विंग के साथ हम लोग विंग ओवर कर सकते हैं, एक्रोबेटिक कर सकते हैं। बट साथ साथ सर ये भी मत भूलियो कि आपके सामने ही हमने वर्ल्ड चैंपियनशिप, वर्ल्ड पैरामोटरिंग चैंपियनशिप में हिस्सा लेके पैरामोटरिंग के वो भी करतब कर दिखाए थे पीपीसी से। दिस इज ओनली आई वांट टू से।
Okay, sir.
That's it, Bhushan. Thank you.
Thank you, Vijay ji. And Eric sir, I'd like to thank you for introducing all of us so beautifully, and in such a simple way. You introduced a different sport altogether. My initial way of looking at it was, we know paragliding, let's put a motor behind it and learn more about it as paramotoring. But now I definitely have a better understanding of it being a different sport altogether, although similar in many ways. So thank you for taking out time and answering so many queries and questions in line. Would you like to say any closing comments or thoughts? Would you like to share with the community?
Bhushan, I have spoken quite a lot, and I think I have given a lot of information. And I am very thankful to you and Padri sir to have organized this session. I got to see many faces which they are not seeing for the past so many days now because of the lockdown. It is, I can only say that I have enjoyed flying tremendously. I am a sailplane pilot. I have done almost about 10,000 flights on a sailplane. But I find that paramotoring and paragliding both are uh, are too good. I mean, people who are doing paragliding and paramotoring, they are not missing. They may not miss sailplane flying also. They can continue paragliding and paramotoring, and it nowadays it is becoming safer and safer to paraglide because there is a lot of information available on the net. So I wish all the best for all the people who are into the sport of paragliding and paramotoring, and young people like you are coming into this, and I'm sure there is better future for the sport. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Eric sir.
Everybody, you can unmute yourself, switch on your videos, and express gratitude.
Thank you.
Thank
you.
Thank you very
Thank
much.
you very
Eric
much.
sir.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you, Mangesh.
Thanks, Eric.
Wish
Nice
you
to hear
happy
from you.
landings to everyone.
Oh,
Thanks,
Vijay,
Eric.
sir,
Eric sir, thanks.
Vijay sir has to come back into the session for a full-fledged speech from him.
जरूर sir, जरूर.
Yeah,
There
आपके
is
पास तो बहुत
lot
experience है.
to share for Vijay. Yeah, amazing pilot, amazing enthusiast.
Yes.
Eric sir, thanks a lot.
Oh,
Good to see
thanks
you
a
again.
lot. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Come on.
Thank you, Eric sir.
Thank you. Thank you.